It was good. Was good. You are now watching JUK Boyz Sports Show. I am your host, Kyng Ralphs. Hope everybody's doing good out there in TV land for another solo dolo episode. And I'm a little hurt. I forgot to do water. I forgot to give myself some water. So it is what it is. Hey, quarter zip gang too. Quarter zip gang in this thing. You know what I'm talking about? But got a new router. Seeing how it goes. Let me know how it looks. But let's get it. If you're looking for a clean, no crash, jitterless energy drink, use promo code JUK, JUK, for 20% off on Dubby.com, DUBBY, Dubby.com. For 20% off, we're going to get you right. All right. And let's get into it. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Make sure you subscribe at JUK Network, JUK Network on YouTube. Follow JUK Network as well on Facebook. You can follow me at KYNGRALPH on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, Threads, and add an underscore for extra Twitter. And let's get into it. That boy Sheduer was out there slanging, wheeling, and dealing, man. Although it was against the Raiders, I told y'all that this was probably the best situation that he can find himself in, going up against a very bad defense, not a very good team, and he looked good. Went out there 11-20, put him at, I think, what is that? Wow. 11 divided by 20. 55. 55% completion percentage. I would like that to be higher. I did say that a good game from him would be about 200, 250 yards. You wanted him to be around 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He did have a completion where he completed a pass over the middle or toward the sideline on the hash marks to Jared Judy. Jared Judy went out there and start turning the skip to Mylou, wasn't paying attention, got chased down, ball punched out, fumble. And this was at a moment where they were driving the ball down the field and he could have had a second touchdown. And so going into it, Shedeur did his thing. There was a juice and an energy in the building that in the end, I think regardless of the matter, if you look at all of the teammates and the players that played for the Cleveland Browns, the way that they spoke about the energy that he brought, the throws that he made, Myles Garrett, their best player probably on the defense and that they've had in team history. If it wasn't for Brown, maybe the best player that they've ever had on that organization. And I'm going to get into him in just a second. Pause. That sounds crazy. My fault. But Myles Garrett gives you the stamp of approval. He's their franchise player on both offense and defense. And regardless of Dylan Gabriel coming back from the concussion, he's been named the starter. And so what he did and the juice that he brought to the team, Stefanski really didn't have an option at the end of the day. If you sit him down, given what he showed and the way that he carries himself, when you hear and you see people interact with him, regardless if it's him or if it's the fact that he's Deion's son, the players respect him and have a lot of love and admiration for him, and they're ready for him. So what's the worst? The team was already 2-9 going into the game. Now they're 3-9, and you got Stefanski put in a position where he has no choice but to play him in this spot. And so going forward, he's going to be the starter at least for this next game. They are going to go up against a 49ers team who is 8-4 coming off of a victory last night, where Robert Saleh's got that defense, regardless of them losing their 2 best players, they got an opportunity to they're putting defense. The defense is putting the offense in positions where they're able to win games. And so, which is really on the flip side, in order for the Sheduer to be able to play or really be able to make moves with this team, I think I understand the whole tanking aspect where you're 3-9. You really don't want to win too many games to where you slip out of the top 10. But from a Shedeur standpoint, you got to go out there and you got to show what you got, bro. And so play complementary football, try to protect the ball. He did a good job after making that early mistake. After that, he used his eyes, looked people off, threw people open, was very accurate, moving the pocket. And so with the way that defense plays and the way that Brock Purdy looked on last night, as long as that defense gives them short fields, can create turnovers, and Myles Garrett can continue to keep doing what he's doing, and Sheduer doesn't turn the football, the Browns have an opportunity to win this game next week. And so I'm looking forward to the game. I always work Sunday, so I probably won't get an opportunity to watch it unless it's the afternoon game, or if it's the early game, I'll be able to watch like a little bit of the first half. But hey, I'm rooting for you, my boy. Keep doing what you're doing, gang. And so top 5 MVP candidates. This is where we talk about Myles Garrett, among others, Matthew Stafford. For me personally, Matt Stafford, Jonathan Taylor, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Myles Garrett, Christian McCaffrey are all players candidates. No particular order. I don't know if I'm necessarily enough. I can rank them currently. Me personally, I think from what he's been able to do, being the main piece on offense and his stats, Christian McCaffrey has as much of an opportunity as anybody else. Jonathan Taylor, some of the games that he's had like 3 or 4 200-yard games with 3 touchdowns. But Christian McCaffrey, what he's been able to do, 217 carries, almost 800 yards on the ground, 7 touchdowns, and then through the air, 81 receptions, 785 yards, 5 touchdowns. And on the ground, he's looking at about almost 4 yards a carry. Right now, if you keep him on his game averages, he'll end up with just over 1,200 yards on the ground, 1,200 yards in the air, 11 touchdowns, 8 on the ground, 8 touchdowns through the air, 123 receptions. He's leading the NFL in receptions right now. And when you put him up against like someone currently, Jonathan Taylor has 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns right as we speak. That's not even for what his stats are going to look like toward the end of the year. And then when you talk about Myles Garrett, in 11 games, he has 18 sacks. The closest person to him after that is 5 sacks away. And so 26 tackles for loss. He's averaging about 1.5 sacks a game, which like it's a little weird when you think about like half stats where you're doing like these, you averages out for games. It's like, oh, typically points and yards, there's no 0.6 or 0.5, where when you get sacks, you can get a half a sack where he's in a half per game. Right now where we stand, where if he stays with where he's at, we're looking at 27 sacks, which is sharing the sacks record for sacks in the season. 68 tackles from an edge rusher, someone that moves inside, outside, 3 technique, hand in the ground, standing up straight. You see him with where he's sitting there doing basketball moves before he comes off the line. And it very well could end up with all 40 tackles for loss at the end of the season. And so Jackson Jigba, a lot of times they want to give that love to the quarterback, but with JSN and what he's been able to do, 80 receptions, 1,307 touchdowns currently as we speak, could very well end up he's on pace to pass 2,000 yards through the air, 122 receptions, and 13 touchdowns. And then Matt Stafford doing the damn thing, slanging the rock over there, bad back and all, 30 touchdowns right now, not really turning the ball over a whole lot, 2 interceptions, just under 3,000 yards on the year so far. Could very well end up with almost 50 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. It's a quarterback award a lot of the times. So if there's going to be a quarterback that I will give it to, Matt Stafford would be the guy. But just simply looking at what is the award itself, it is the most valuable player to that team. Me personally, it's not always going to be the quarterback. When you look at the Colts, I don't care how good Daniel Jones is playing. If he don't have Jonathan Taylor doing what he's doing this year, that team is not going to be as good. Now, the defense is playing really well as well. They're getting after it. They're creating turnovers. They're getting stops, extra possessions. Jonathan Taylor is running the ball at a high of almost 6 yards a carry. And his stats right now look like 10 years ago, this was a good year for a running back. Shoot, even right now, what he looks at right now, 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns for a running back in this era where we're slinging the rock 50, 60 times a game. I think that you can't deny that and just simply be like, well, it's a quarterback award, so let's give him the offensive player award, where this could be a year where I could see JSN winning offensive player of the year, and then a running back or someone else can win MVP. If Myles Garrett gets almost 30 sacks this year, like, how can you deny him that? And that's the part for me where I start to have issues with this whole quarterback driven award, and I hate it, man. And so that wraps up my top five. I didn't really give it in any kind of like 5 to 1, 1 to 5. I just think that those 5 people, you got to give them their love and credit right now. So Draymond Green and Kenyon Martin, there's been a little bit of a back and forth, not a little bit, a lot of it. Started off where Kenyon Martin was on, I forget the podcast, but they asked him about the enforcers of old or enforcers in the game. And he brought up the Davis brothers, himself included as one of the people that you would think as an enforcer. And then they had Draymond, and he simply was just, Draymond picks and chooses who he goes at. He goes against the Rudy Goberts, the Yosef Nurkic of the world. But he'll slide and he won't say nothing to a Julius Randle. He won't say anything to a Steven Adams of that sort. People that you very well know that your safety might be at risk if I say something too wild or if I act out too crazily. And so I think that, and we seen like recently, he went at Wemby. I ain't going for all that. I might be tall and slender, but hey, cut the cap, little dude. And so I think that when we start to have these conversations, I'm not going to sit here and act like Draymond is not like a great basketball player, that he's not someone that to tell the story. You can't tell the Warriors story without Draymond. As great as Clay, KD, and Steph have been, you can't tell the story of that Warriors team without Draymond, because he partly gives, once Steph got to the point where he became Steph, a lot of it had to do with the ability to be able to move off ball, on ball. With the off ball, Draymond Green, insert Draymond Green. And so without Draymond Green, you're not looking at it's a different team. But if we're going to sit here and go back and forth, Kenyon Martin, you put Kenyon Martin on that Warriors team, and I think you still get the same output. A lot of things, and honestly, when you look at it, Kenyon Martin, what he was early in his career, he was so freakish athletic, crazy defender, was able to hit threes in a time period where we weren't really asking. Thanks for pulling up, gang. I appreciate you. Was able to hit threes, not at a super high clip, never was going to be a 40% shooter, but in his young days when he was that guy before the microfractures, and that's another thing too. Those microfracture surgeries, those were career enders. Him being able to come back and still having the career that he had, he went to the West, and also he played in an era where you got Antonio McDyess, you got KG, you got Dirk, you got Tim Duncan, you got Rasheed Wallace, there's a plethora of power forwards and legit force that put Draymond into that situation. What's Draymond doing with a Tim Duncan? What is Draymond, a prime Tim Duncan? What is Draymond doing with a prime KG? What is Tim Duncan doing with a prime Rasheed Wallace? They played in a post, and they played like big men. Draymond Green, as much as I don't want to say it, but make it seem any kind of way, because I don't want to take away from what he was able to do. You can't help the era that you played in, but also we can't just make everything about rings and team victories, because Kenyon Martin in his prime was 2 or 3 on his team. Draymond Green as an option, we were looking at 4, 5, 3 at best. Where Kenyon Martin on that Nets team that went to back-to-back finals, now they got swept. They played against Shaq and Kobe and Tim Duncan and the Spurs in the next one. Now we can't sit there. I'm not going to hold that against him. Look at who he against. What is Kenyon Martin supposed to be able to do? We got the best power forward of all time and one of the greatest centers and most dominant players of all time at that position that he was going up against. What is Kenyon Martin supposed to do in that position? And so we're not going to sit here and just say, oh, well, Draymond Green has 4 rings. Kenyon Martin don't have any, so Draymond Green must be the better player. No, we're not going to do that. Kenyon Martin was a much better basketball player, all-around basketball player, and much more effective as an individual than Draymond Green was in his team aspect. And that's the part for me where I'm going to take Kenyon Martin's side on this one. But I hate the whole conversation and discourse where we start talking about rings, where that's the end all be all, because there's plenty of people that don't have rings, and there's people that are better than people that have multiple full of rings. And so the whole comment. NFL has announced their Hall of Fame semifinalist. Just to kind of go over some of the people that make that list. Let's go back here. Yeah. See, this is why this is why you don't give young kids ice cream or anything sweet this late in the night. I can hear her and she's 3 rooms away from me right now. But Hall of Fame semifinalists, just to go off and name a few: Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Frank Gore, Larry Fitzgerald, T. Sizzle, Vince Wilfork, Jason Witten, to name a few. This is where I think when we start to have these conversations, there's people on this list that I think, as an individual, they are a better individual player. But when we start to talk about like the way that they were used, the usage, like their usage rate, the way that they were used, the teams that they were on, like, do I think that Jason Witten is not better than Shannon Sharp, Gronk, Antonio Gates? I don't think that he's better than Greg Olsen, Tony Gonzalez. But when we start to have these conversations, Jason Witten's going to get into the Hall of Fame. As much as I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, I think that he was Tony Romo's favorite target, and that was his safety blanket. I don't think that he's the greatest tight end of all time. If I would really sit there and I would look at a list of tight ends, I probably could go through a couple people before, or at least 8 to 10 names before I get to him. Does that make him a Hall of Famer? And I hate to see what they're doing to Fred Taylor. I think Fred Taylor, and there's certain, I've talked about this many times, there's certain parameters that at one point, these were Hall of Fame numbers. If you got to 10,000 rushing yards, you rush for 1,000 yards in 10 different seasons, damn near. As a running back, with a running back position, you're looking at about 4 to 6 years. You got to be able to give and reward someone for that, especially on the team that he was on. When the Jaguars were good while he was on those teams, he was an older player and went over to a and still was active. And so Frank T, I hate T. Frank Gore is going to get in. Drew Brees is going to get in. I don't believe that Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer. I don't care what you do in the playoffs. If you're a 500 quarterback, we can't say that the most important player on the field is the quarterback, and then a quarterback that is 500 in their career, put them into the Hall of Fame. I just can't. I don't agree with that, and I don't like that at all. But Willie Anderson, I'm trying to think who else. Marshall Yonda, Steve Wisenwitz, Vince Wilfork, Luke Kuechly, Terrell Suggs. Those are people that should be surefire Hall of Famers. There should be no ifs, ands, or buts about that conversation. I wanted to pull up this. All right, so Earl Thomas, Darren Woodson, and Rodney Harrison are some DBs that are on there. I think honestly, all of those should get in. It's kind of interesting the way that they go about it. I was reading the list or how they go about it, where they start off with a big pool of people, and then they get down to where right now they're at about 26. After this, they're going to cut that down to 15. From 15, they should get to 10, and from 10, they should get down to 5. And so it's just, I don't know how they do this or how they get down, because this is hard. I think that Drew Brees off rip is a Hall of Famer. Frank Gore should be a Hall of Famer. Larry Fitzgerald, Hall of Famer. I think that all of the wide receivers that are on this list are Hall of Famers, from Torrey Holt, Steve Smith Sr., Hines Ward, and Reggie Wayne. I think that Vince Wilfork is a surefire Hall of Famer. I'm not sure about Robert Mathis and Kevin Williams off the top of my head. And Luke Kuechly and T. Sizzle, those are backers that different types of backers, but they were the best at their position for the length of their career, if not their whole career. And so I'm curious to see where it ends up going from here. I hate what they do with boy Freddie T, but we're going to see what happens. Going into this fast break, man, they go ahead. You see the Raiders cap. They fired Chip Kelly. But honestly, it don't fucking matter. And it don't matter at all, in my personal opinion. Because Pete Carroll's son is still the offensive line coach. Pete Carroll still won't admit to some of the mistakes when it comes to players that he has on the field. Now, Chip Kelly, when it comes down to it, Chip Kelly did have some things where off rip, you come in, we draft Ashton Jeanty. You tell Ashton Jeanty his signature standing up straight pose, our hands on thighs. I bet. Cool. Doesn't work. Then we got poor offensive line. We're not calling any plays to try to help out that offensive line or that quarterback. We're not calling any plays that make Geno Smith look better or put him in a better position. And so I do think that it'll help us in the long run, but this season, and until Pete Carroll can sit there, look himself in the mirror and say, hey, Blue Kelly, you got to sit down. Let's see what the corner we drafted in the 3rd round looks like. Let's see what we got out of that. Sit down, 3-6. 3-6 got to sit down. And some of the other little mistakes, like Jackson Powers, we draft him at center. He looks like he can be a future All-Pro center, and then we move him to guard for a center that's one of the worst in NFL. It just doesn't make sense to me. So in the end, I'm happy Chip Kelly is out of there, but it don't fucking matter if Pete Carroll can't get out of his own way. And then so Trayvon Moehrig has been suspended. He in a little bit of a scrum, pushing and shoving. Juwan Jennings gets punched in the nuts. After the game, he pulls a Brian Branch and had to see what them hands was talking about. I don't blame him. I'm on his side. Juwan Jennings should not be suspended or fined. Now, when you're throwing punches, regardless of how it looks, the same thing I said with Jalen Ramsey, I don't, from a business standpoint, from a corporate standpoint, I don't blame them for the fine. But as a man, at the end of the day, you punch me in the nuts, and this is not a life or death situation, you will hold for that. Can't let that slide and just act like it didn't happen. And that's the part for me where I don't know what these dudes got going on, but punching people in the nuts, spitting on folks, it's just some places and at a point where that's just completely and blatantly disrespectful. Dallas Wings win the W draft lottery. They go right now. It's looking like Lauren Betts from UCLA. I think is it AZ or Ozzie Fudd from UConn. A lot of people got her possibly being the number 1 pick, or Awa Femme from France. I think she's in France or Spain. But African chick from France or Spain, big, versatile, mobile playmaker. Azzy is high IQ shooter. created her own shot, has an injury history, but she is Paige Becker's girlfriend. I remember hearing about that getting pretty much confirmed over the last year, or at least during this last WNBA season. And then Lauren Betts, 6'7", inside, is a dominant post and defender, offensively and defensively. Is averaging almost about 4 assists right now, 15 points, 7 rebounds, couple blocks a game. And so it just, at this point, you kind of got to decide, how are we going to build this team? Are we going to go where you look at the Aces, you have a dominant big in Asia, and you have a dominant perimeter? Or do you, which this worked with the Aces, this worked with the Liberty, this worked with in their prime, in their heyday? What do you do in this moment? And I think that it's going to be a tough one, because obviously you would think that, all right, put someone close to Paige to be able to play next to her. But then also there's a Lauren Betts, 6'7". Those just don't fall off trees. And in our fam, what she is able to do and the potential that she has, also while big, where she can attack you off the dribble. Got to work on that jumper a little bit to be able to match it where you're going to be that effective. But it can go either way, man. I'm kind of curious to see where they go from here. Now, there's still a whole college season, and fam is over in Spain. You know what? Let's look it up, because I'm tired of not necessarily knowing what I'm talking about. I should have wrote that down when I was saying where she was from. Where is she from? Oh, Spain. España. She is from Senegal by way of Spain, or from Spain by way of Senegal. I'm trying to remember. I always mix up how that works. But 6'6" is what they got her listed here. I've seen her listed at 6'4", so we'll see once the actual draft happens what they got her listed at. Now, she's that 6'6", at that versatile mobile. I would go with her over a Lauren Betts, but what do you do with her versus Paige's girlfriend? And so, Keon Coleman, you got to get it together, my boy. I am rooting for you at the end of the day. I thought that you got drafted into the perfect situation. Stephon Diggs goes, you get drafted. Second round, you have the personality, the athleticism. I've seen you make some big plays, but it just kind of right now seems like you think that everything is just going to, no matter how you play and how you act, it's just going to be, everything's going to be all right. Where, no, the last thing that you want to do right now is put yourself in a position where the team feels like they don't need you. And you see these past games, and Josh Allen coming out and playing 6 touchdowns with no Keon Coleman. They just brought in Brandon Cooks today. They pick up Gabe Davis off the practice squad, and Khalil Shakur is playing good. So it looks like they don't need you, bro. Where that's the last thing that you need. You're a second round wide receiver coming up on a new contract. You're gonna want top dollar. They can save a lot of money and just get run-of-the-mill wide receivers where they can pay a couple mil here and there and be able to pay other people and still build out a roster where you don't ever want to give them and put yourself in a position to where you feel like they don't need you. And so last but not least, man, Bleacher Report puts, I forget the reporter's name or the journalist's name, Lamar Jackson. The Lamar Jackson hate needs to stop. This is my last point before I get up out of here. It got to stop. I get it. He doesn't have the postseason success, but there's plenty of people that did not have the success or the talent that we hold them at. They have won Super Bowl in a 20-year career, like Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, it took so long for Peyton Manning to be able to get his. Now I'll beat the table for Peyton Manning just like anybody else, and I feel like his defense had a lot to do with that. But also, look at some of his performances. I can't sit here as much as I want to sit there. Lamar has his receivers have a lot of drop passes and just bonehead things. Zay Flowers fumbling, 7 drops in one game, but he's come out there and he's laid some eggs. But what he's been able to do, clearly the best runner that we've ever seen at the quarterback position, if not one of the best runners we've ever seen ever, period, whether or not it's running back, wide receiver, tight end, or quarterback. And then on top of that, look at what he's done from a throwing the football aspect. 2 years, he has 2 different years where he's the top touchdown thrower, but also has been the best runner at the quarterback position in NFL history. So lay off Lamar. I get it. When it gets to the playoffs, all right, if he plays bad, cool. I get it. But overrated, cut the cap, because Ravens up until 2 years ago, if not last year, was the first time that I'd say he has a plethora of weapons at his disposal to where he should be doing something with it. Prior to that, what do you have? Hollywood, Mark Andrews. When your tight end is your best receiver, it's not always the best thing because you don't have anyone to really be able to spread the ball out. You load up in the box and then guard Mark Andrews. To where now there's a Rashad Bateman, there's a Zay Flowers, you got D-Hop, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, and Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell coming out of the backfield. So now we can say if he does nothing with this, put it on Lamar. He's not doing what he needs to do. But overrated is cat bullshit, and I'm tired of it. I don't want to go race. I'm tired of the bullshit, and you get what I'm saying. But thank you all for watching. I do got to get up out of here. Me and my quarter zip swag, what I'm saying? We've been doing this for a while. I don't know why. I'm old. I'm approaching unk status. I'm not there yet. But in my mid-20s, bro, this is how we dressed to go to the club. We had quarter zip polo over the top, looking fresh, looking business casual, ready to get toe up from the flow up. And so I appreciate y'all for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Keep running up those subscribers. We are approaching. We're up to 96 right before I started the show. 96 subscribers at JUK Network. Subscribe at JUK Network on YouTube. Follow JUK Network on Facebook. You can follow me at KYNGRALPH. Check out in the morning anywhere where you listen to your podcast. I will be putting a audio only podcast anywhere where you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, whatever. And thank you all for watching. I'm out of here. It's hot.